So 2025 has started, and with it comes the 80th anniversary of the Railway Series publication in 1945. And with 80 years of history to its name, it would be an understatement to say that there's quite a lot of history behind the Little Blue Tank Engine. So in commemoration of this milestone, I plan on reviewing each era of the franchise in 3 separate videos leading up to the 80th anniversary in May. Each video will be based on the following eras: the Railway Series, books 1 to 42, the Mattel Series, seasons 1 to 12 plus the 3 movies and Jack in the Pack, and the CGI Series, seasons 13 to 24 plus 11 movies and 4 specials. First we'll be reviewing the Mattel Series. Wait, you may ask, wouldn't it make sense to start off with the Railway Series and then do the Mattel Series afterwards? And yes, it would. However, I want to do the Mattel Series first for another reason. On January 3rd, it was announced that Britt, the creator of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, had unfortunately passed away at the age of 81 back in December of 2024. Considering how much she's done for this franchise and community, in her honor, I will start off this trilogy with the era she started, the era that introduced the series to millions around the world. So with that said, Britt, this is for you. As most first seasons do, Season 1 introduces its main characters through each of their own dedicated series of episodes, which display their character growth, personalities, and their interactions with each other. Out of all the classic seasons, Season 1 feels the most balanced in my opinion. Not only does it do a great job at representing the characters, but also at having everything seem connected, with most episodes continuing off the last. When it comes to the sets, most areas feel very grounded, and somewhat have a simple feel to them, and that's backed up even more by the small use of music. I think having a setup like this is really fitting, as it really does represent the simplicity and down-to-earth vibe of the season. Overall, Season 1 did a great job at laying down the foundations for the seasons yet to come, and came they did, as in 1986, Season 2 was released. Season 2 expands upon Season 1 in every single way. Tons of new characters and locations, new camera lighting, more use of music, it hits all the marks a second season should hit. For starters, new characters are fantastic. Duck, Donald and Douglas, Boko, Bill and Ben, tons of fan favorites with great introduction episodes and personalities. The new locations are also really good. The sets and places here will feel very complex compared to Season 1, with areas like the harbor and the China clay pits, having such a large scope to them. With all these new additions, it only makes sense that most of the season is focused around them, and rightfully so, as these episodes are really good. The Duck and Diesel trilogy, Save and Scrap, Versus Proves the Point, it's pretty easy to see why they focused on them as much as they did. However, this season doesn't shy away from including episodes that focus on other characters and locations already established in Season 1. Ironically enough, some of the best and most iconic episodes of this season come from these episodes. Edward's Exploit, Percy's Ghostly Trick, Old Iron, fantastic all around. All this combined, you got yourself a fantastic second season, with excellent world building that will continue to get better as the seasons go on. After Season 2, the series went on a bit of a hiatus for 5 years, as Britt and David went off to go work on other projects. Eventually, they came back to working on Thomas, and with his popularity skyrocketing in the US, it was natural that they would make a 3rd season. Season 3 is an interesting case, compared to the first 2 seasons, as those seasons had all their episodes based on the Railway Series. In Season 3, however, they decided to make their own stories, while at the same time continue to adapt from the books. Despite Wilbert's conflicting thoughts on the idea,
only revealed their lamentable ignorance of railway practice.
You gotta hand it to them. These episodes are some of the best of the whole series. Henry's Forest, All at Sea, Thomas and Percy's Mountain Adventure. Considering this is their first time doing this, it's pretty impressive they were able to make episodes of this quality. Not to mention the Railway Series stories they decided to adapt. Escape, Oliver Owns Up, Toby's Tightrope. It's no wonder that Season 3 is a fan favorite. Despite how much I like the original episodes, I will admit not all of them are great. Some episodes like Trouble with Mud, Thomas Gets Bumped, or One Good Turn aren't bad, but compared to the previously mentioned episodes, they're honestly the weaker episodes of the season in my opinion. Other than the original episodes, another big change this season had was the change in graphics. The previous 2 seasons didn't have the brightest of colors when it came to its lighting, which by all means doesn't look bad. If anything, it makes them stand out quite a lot. But comparing both, Season 3 does look better in my opinion, as everything feels much more colorful and lively. Compared to Season 2, Season 3 didn't introduce as many new characters and locations, but when it comes to characters, they're actually really good in my opinion. Mavis, Oliver, Toad, say what you will about how little they used them in later seasons, these are some great characters. For being the first Thomas season to release in the US, this is a great first impression, as it only made Thomas even more popular than he already was. Thankfully, we didn't have to wait as long for Season 4 as we did with Season 3, as it was soon released 3 years later in 1994. Out of all the classic seasons, Season 4 probably introduces the most amount of new characters and locations yet. Forget introducing new locations, how about introducing a whole entire section of the island with its own fleet of engines? Of course, I'm referring to the narrow gauge railway, possibly one of the most beloved aspects of the franchise, and for good reason. For starters, narrow gauge engines are fantastic. Great personalities, phenomenal episodes, and even some great backstories behind some of them. Season 4 doesn't just add more content, but it also adds a lot of lore to the series as well. Like Duke's backstory, where you find out that he was one of the first engines on Sodor, as well as Sir Handel, Falcon, and Peter Sam, Steward. If you've read the Railway series, you would know that in the books, narrow gauge engines were all red. However, similar to Donnel and Douglas, Britt decided to have them all be in different colors, as it distinguishes them from each other. This was a really good idea in my opinion, as it really does make each of them stand out outside of personality. Not only does this season have great characters, but it also in my opinion has some of the best looking set design in the series. From the mountains, to the valleys, to the scenery and lighting, you can tell they went all out when it came to the decor. Despite the narrow gauge engine's huge presence this season, that doesn't mean we don't have room for standard gauge. These episodes are near the same quality as the narrow gauge episodes, and are full of countless great episodes. Toad Stands By, Thompson's Special Letter, Pain's Crossing Queens, Rolled Out. Now this is quality over quantity at its finest. For being the last Railway Series based season, this is a phenomenal way to cap them off, and is honestly my favorite classic season for all these reasons alone. 3 years later in 1997, the Reverend Wilbert Audrey would unfortunately pass away at the age of 85 years old. Before that point, all episodes had to be based on the Railway series, as a part of an agreement between Britt and Wilbert to have the show made. Due to his passing, they didn't have to abide by that rule anymore, and they did that to their advantage, as Season 5 would become the first Thomas season to have all original episodes. The best way I could describe Season 5 is that it's chaotic, but grounded. Season 5 is extremely varied when it comes to its theming. At one point, you'll have an episode about the engines trying to trip an old friend of theirs who had missed a special occasion. But on the other hand, you'll also have an episode about an engine's train becoming detached from them, creating a huge runaway, nearly colliding into dozens of engines and breaking through road crossings until finally stopping in a ditch. This mix of episodes makes for a very unpredictable but really entertaining season. While this season doesn't introduce as many characters compared to Season 4, the characters we get here are still pretty good. Crank is a fantastic addition to the docks and gives it so much more personality. Harry and Bert, while barely used, are really menacing in their introduction episode, especially compared to later seasons.
Little green piggy in the middle.
Derek is there, and then never again. Also, Coach, while barely used, is a really neat character in my opinion. The Lord Lorries, while only seen once, make for a very entertaining episode, and then there's Thumper. Yep, the set designs are in similar vein, as you do see some great new areas like Kirk Ronan and the Smelty Yard. However, only one of them are seen again after this season. One of the biggest and most iconic aspects of this season, when it comes to model work at least, are the crashes. These have to be some of the most impressive stunts in the whole model series. Sure, previous seasons had some pretty crazy crash sequences, but compared to stuff like this, it's pretty difficult to beat. In my opinion, Season 5 is without doubt the most thrilling and unpredictable season of the series, and has some excellent original episodes. For a while, Britt had wanted to make a Thomas movie with how popular he became by this point, and Season 5 gave her the perfect opportunity to show off what Dave and his crew were capable of. Soon she was able to strike a deal with Destination Films, and development began on the movie. Finally, after countless early builds and script changes, the film Thomas and the Magic Railroad would release in 2000. Thomas and the Magic Railroad is probably one of the most infamous pieces of Thomas media out there, as not only was it the first Thomas movie, but it was also very mixed upon fans. On one hand, the Sodor scenes are great. Good characters, good model work, good writing. They really nailed Sodor down here in my opinion. However, on the other hand, you have the human scenes, that of which take a majority of the film. The pacing's slow, some scenes are really confusing, the plots are really hard to follow. It's surprising there's this many scenes in what is supposed to be a Thomas movie. Considering this is a film, obviously they had quite a larger budget compared to the show, and with this budget in mind, they were able to give the engines their own voices. In my opinion, I think a lot of these voices suit the characters perfectly. Eddie Glenn as Thomas, Neil Curtin as Gordon, Colin Farrell as Toby, all suit the characters extremely well. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of all the voices, most notably James and Percy's, but considering majority, I'd still say the cast is really good. One of my favorite aspects of this movie are the new characters introduced. Diesel 10, Splatter, Dodge, Lady are all great characters with amazing voices. Sure, most of them we don't really see again after this movie, but for who they are, they really do carry this movie, especially Diesel 10. For as good as the soda scenes are, we can't neglect the previously mentioned human scenes. I understand that some scenes and plots are slightly out of place due to some of them being connected to the scrapped original cuts, but I'm sorry, I can't get over the fact that these scenes have 3 entire plot lines, and as stated before, are really hard to follow. The first one's about Mr. Conductor trying to regain his gold dust, the second one is about Bernard Stone trying to bring Lady back to steam, and the third one's about Lily trying to get back home after getting stuck on Sodor. For as out of place as these scenes are, I will say some of the actors are really entertaining here, especially Alec Baldwin. Despite how much of a mixed bag I think this movie is, Thomas & Magic Road is still really special to me, as it was a big part of my childhood, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. Due to its flaws, Thomas & Magic Road did really badly in the box office, only making back just slightly over their budget. As such, Britt Alcroft had to leave her own company, making Thomas & the Magic Robot her last project in the series. With only David and his crew left, they rebranded the company as Glen Entertainment, and would soon start production on Season 6. Considering this season was made by David as well as additional new writers, some changes would become inevitable, and those changes were kinda conflicting in my opinion. Just to get the negatives out of the way, I'm not a big fan of the graphics. Everything here feels very colorless and dull compared to the previous seasons. Some of the characters in this season also feel very out of character, with engines such as Percy and Gordon. Percy was dumbed down to a degree with him pronouncing words wrong, and Gordon is just a boastful jerk, undermining most of the other engines, even Edward. Sure, they did retain some of these personality traits even before Season 6, but it was at a very minimal degree compared. Season 6 is also home to probably my least favorite classic Thomas episodes. Twin Trouble, Edward the Really Useful Engine, Rescue to the Rescue, Middle Engine. I'm surprised myself that this season had as many bad episodes as it did. For as negative as I've been with Season 6, I'd be lying if I said this season didn't have any positives. Despite there only being 3, the new characters in this season are fantastic. Stolte's design and personality works perfectly for the Docks. Harvey was a really unique idea, just barely used, and Elizabeth has some very entertaining moments throughout the season. This season started off really strong in the episodes department, with Salty's Secret, No Sleep for Cranky, and The Fogman, as well as throughout the season, with episodes like The World's Strongest Engine and Toby Had a Little Lamb. For me, most of the episodes here range from just average to good in my opinion. There is honestly no in between. Overall, Season 6 is a pretty interesting season, with a lot of interesting ideas and episodes. However, there's still one big thing this season did that I haven't discussed yet. In the first bit of Season 6, we got 2 episodes, consisting of Jack Jumps In and A Friend in Need, with both being based around construction vehicle characters that we hadn't seen before. These 2 episodes will become the pilot episodes to the later release spin-off season, Jack in the Pack. The same year Season 6 came out, Hey Entertainment had bought Glen, and as such had more control over Season 7 and Jack in the Pack. Considering Hit already owned Bob the Builder, a show about construction vehicles, they only made 13 out of the 26 planned episodes, due to Hit not wanting competition between their own franchises. Despite the limited amount of episodes, this season is honestly really good in my opinion. This season does a great job at establishing the new characters, having each character have at least 1 to 2 episodes centered around them. It's pretty impressive they're able to do all this, considering the fact that they introduced 11 whole new characters with all having their own character traits. Not to mention the model work this season. If you look at the behind the scenes of this season, you can see just how big the models and sets were, which makes sense when you consider the fact you need to pull off stuff like this. There's no way they could have done that in just G-scale. Something I really like a lot with these episodes is how different each episode feels going into the next, particularly with the locations. As real construction vehicles do, they're always constantly working in different areas, and that is reflected really well here. At one point, they're in a forest with a big tree that they need to stabilize, or in an abandoned building that needs to get knocked down. Seeing how great a lot of this season is, it really sucks the other 13 episodes never happened. But for what we got, this is still a really good season, with some amazing episodes throughout. While it was filmed alongside Season 7, Jack in the Pack didn't come out until 2006, unlike Season 7, which released the same year it was made. While Hit did have control for most of the season, there's actually quite a lot of things to like here. For one, the new characters are actually really good. Sure, only 2 of them stayed relevant past this season, but the others are still worthy of talking about. Arthur has a really great design with a really cool workplace, being at the harbor. Murdoch, despite his size and basis, is a really neat character, with him being portrayed as a gentle giant. Fergus, while I personally find him annoying, does have a good design with some decent episodes. Emily, as opposed to her Hit era portrayal, was used quite differently here, being used as a mentor for the other engines, standing up towards her nonsense. And Spencer stayed pretty much the same throughout the rest of the show. I mean, the rivalry between him and Gordon was introduced in his introduction episode, so I guess that counts for something. When it comes to the regular Sodor stuff, that's where things start to become a little mixed in my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong, there are still tons of episodes I like here, such as A Bad Day at Castle Lock, Oliver the Snow Engine, The Queen of Sodor, Toby and the Windmill, etc. But when it comes to others, it gets a bit rough, particularly with the narrow gauge stuff. This is the point in time where the narrow gauge engines started to change from being unique and well-written characters to having wimpy and childish personalities, with episodes like The Old Bridge and Renee's and the Roller Coaster. As the last season of the classic era, this was a pretty good way to go out on. Sure, there were some negatives, but honestly, I'm just thankful that Season 7 was at least good, as now we're transitioning into the Hit era, where things start to, let's just say, take a really big dip in quality, starting with Season 8. Now with Hit in control, it was now up to them as to what they want to do with the show going forward, and from the changes shown this season, it's a really bad sign. By this point, episodes would usually be roughly 3 to 4 minutes. However, Hit decided to change that and make episodes 6 to 7 minutes. Why? So they could have longer running times when episodes aired on TV. Not only did this time change destroy the pacing of the episodes, but it also made episodes have heavy amounts of filler that in no way impact episodes and were only added to make the time longer. To add on top of that, Hit also decided to create segments between TV aired episodes, known as learning segments, just to show that they're really trying to make this appeal to the youngest of children imaginable, but at the same time make the pacing worse than it already is. Remember how I said they misused Percy and Gordon in Season 6? Well, not only are they worse here, but they also downgraded the entire main cast, besides James, to a point where it feels like they've lost all previous character development. The show even took a downgrade in model work. Besides some scenes, the digital cameras look extremely dull, and the sets also feel very plain. For as bad as all these changes are, ironically there's actually a decent amount of things in this season I like. Despite this era's bad rap on episodes, there's actually some good episodes here. Thomas Saves the Day, Halloween, Edward the Great, Squeak Rattle and Roll are all pretty good in my opinion. While Season 8 is the first season to kick off the Hit era, it was a pretty decent start. Sure, most of the episodes are pretty mid, but at least there were a good amount of good episodes here, because, trust me, it gets way worse later on. 2005 saw the Railway Series' 60th anniversary, and of course, Hit wanted to advertise off of that as much as possible, pumping out loads of merchandise, home media, and the most surprising of all, a movie. Kong Legend shares a lot of similar qualities to Season 8, with most of it being mid, having some decent moments, and of course, learning segments. Getting to the obvious, this movie's pacing is really boring. This whole story feels like it could be told in not even 20 minutes, and honestly would have looked way better as a special. For as cool as it is seeing recurring characters like Lady, Dieselton, and Daisy, they didn't really appear much, and when they did, they were usually very out of character than when we last saw them, especially Dieselton. Despite its predictability, the moral of this movie isn't actually that bad, and while yes, it is reused way too many times going forwards, I would say it was done best here. For as forgettable as this movie is, the new locations are actually really cool, like the Suspension Bridge and the Sodor Airport, which are, for granted, not used much either, but are still worthy of mentioning. While I don't think Kong Legends is as bad as people say it is, as a movie for the 60th anniversary, it's pretty disappointing. For as mixed as his 60th anniversary was, it was still pumping out quite a lot of content, as not only did we get a new movie, but they also started airing the 9th season. Unlike Season 8, Season 9 actually introduces 5 new characters: Molly, Neville, Mighty Mac, Dennis, and Proteus. While most of them are pretty much cash grabs, there are other characters like Mighty Mac and Proteus who are actually pretty decent in my opinion, and are both ironically narrow gauge. Speaking of narrow gauge, this season also saw the return of the narrow gauge fleet, and their... oh no.
Puffscarloey as he raced down the hill.
Before I get to the negatives, I will say that Mr. Percival is a nice addition to the narrow gauge railway. It is a nice change as opposed to having Sir Topham Hatt. Out of every single character this era, the narrow gauge engines have to be the most butchered characters of this entire era. First off, they changed all their personalities, when instead of them being well developed and unique characters, are now portrayed as acting like children. And to make it worse, the narrow gauge episodes are home to the worst episodes of the whole season, with Scarloey the Brave and Rheneas and the Dinosaur. On the bright side, there are actually some good episodes this season: Respect for Gordon, Percy and the Oil Painting, Flower Power, Thomas and the Statue, Mighty Mac, etc. As for the rest of the season, I have pretty much the same thoughts on it as Season 8, as most of the season is the same quality to me. Season 9 feels more like an upgraded Season 8 in my opinion, as the only major thing this season does for me is add some new characters, and that's it. Going into the next 2 seasons, I haven't actually watched Season 10 and 11 fully, so my opinions here are going to be first hand, as opposed to the previous, which I have watched multiple times. Now we're getting to the seasons where I begin to have less things to say about them, and Season 10 is a great example of that. Out of every season so far, this season probably has the least amount of redeeming qualities, which is ironic when you consider that this season has 28 entire episodes. As for those episodes, there are some good episodes here, like Gordon's Gordon, Toby's New Shed, James' Second Best, and Emily and the Coaches, but compared to the previous seasons, there are way less good episodes here. When it comes to the new stuff this year, it's a very little amount of it. For the new characters, we were introduced to Rosie, Rocky, Freddy, and Jeremy, with only 2 of them staying relevant beyond this era. For as cool as the wharf is as a location, it shares the same fate as the characters, with it being very underutilized. Something surprising about this season was that they actually brought back an old character, being Sir Handel. For context, Sir Handel hadn't appeared in an episode since Season 4, and was theorized by many that he was sent away until coming back in Season 10. For the rest of the season, it's extremely mid, as per usual, and to put the cherry on the cake, has some of the worst episodes of the whole era, with the infamous Edward Strikes Out and Thomas's Frosty Friend. All around a mid-season with very little quality and very little things to say about it. Speaking of mid-seasons, next we have Season 11. Going into this season at first, I didn't think it was that bad, as the first 2 episodes of the season are actually pretty good, like Dream On, Hector the Horde, and Emily in the Garbage. But as the previous seasons do, this season takes a really big dip in quality very quickly. A big majority of this season's episodes are not only based around the 3 strikes formula, but most of them are also based around Thomas. This season has not 1, not 2, but 13 episodes where Thomas is the main character. Just for reference, this season has 26 episodes, meaning half of this season is based around Thomas alone. Thankfully, this season actually has quite a lot of changes compared to the previous seasons. Are the changes good? Sorta. The new characters introduced this season are Whiff, Hector, Billy, and Madge. At least there's more characters in Season 10, right? Even if it's only by 1 character. I haven't been talking about the model work much with the previous seasons, as they all look the same honestly, but here there actually are some new changes here, such as the yellow tint. And that's it. I am really struggling to find anything else to say at this point. As the last full model season, this was a really mediocre way to end them off. However, this wasn't the last full model production thankfully, as before HIT started using CGI, they wanted to make one last send-off to the full model series, and that send-off was with the movie The Great Discovery. As some of you may know, this is one of my favorite Thomas movies, for many reasons. For starters, I like how Thomas's character is used, as it feels very reminiscent of his character development across the classic era, surprisingly enough. In the beginning, he starts off cheeky and jealous like in Season 1, until changing and wanting to prove himself useful, which is shown in seasons like Season 7. While only used here and in Season 12, Great Waddington is a really interesting location that adds quite a bit of lore to the series. Something about this movie I feel is quite overlooked is the dynamic between Thomas and Stanley. Sure, Stanley is another cash grab character, I won't deny that, but in character he does contrast well with Thomas, as both are tank engines and one of them is slicker than the other, making Stanley seem better than Thomas. Out of the entire era, this movie has the best model work in my opinion, with Great Waddington, the bridge collapse, the mine scene, etc. This movie also surprisingly brought back Jack in the Pack, who, unlike the Narragansett engines, are actually used well here. This movie truly feels like a celebration of everything the Marvel series had done up to that point. Brings back familiar faces, shows how characters have developed, and introduces new ideas to expand the franchise. Overall, a phenomenal way to wrap off the model era. Is what I would say if this garbage didn't exist. So later that year, HIT decided to experiment with CGI by combining it with the models to create the thing that is Season 12. We have officially reached rock bottom with this era in nearly every aspect imaginable. How on this planet, no, how in this solar system did we go from the likes of The Great Discovery to this in the same year? This is one of the first and unfortunately not the last seasons to use the 3 strikes formula in every episode, and it especially doesn't help when all the episodes look like this. Listen, I get this came out in 2008, so of course the CGI isn't going to be perfect, but could they have done anything else? Look at the Thomas and the Stinky Cheese CGI pilot. And then look at this. You know this season sucks when a literal pilot looks better than a whole season. As for the new characters, they exist. They simply exist. And that is the most I can say on behalf of these characters, besides them being forgettable and barely used. But even then, that applies for dozens of previous characters. The only decent episodes this season has, in my opinion, are Mountain Marvel and Jim's Works It Out. And even then, those are only decent. At this point, I'm just ranting. The CGI sucks, the episodes suck, most know the gist at this point. And with that said, I'll leave it at that. The Marvel series throughout its 24-year run went through probably the most amount of changes out of the 3 series, for both good and bad reasons. But if there's one thing this series holds, it's a legacy. Most people, including myself, would have never known what Thomas was if it wasn't for the Marvel series, and is still heavily cherished even 40 years after the first season came out, which just goes to show how much of a media icon Thomas truly is, and all that stems from Britt Alcroft. Thank you, Britt, for everything you've done for this franchise and community, and may she rest in peace.